First, let me just get this out of the way. This is not a settings video. This is not one of my 5 tips. There is no one sensitivity. There's no one setting that's going to make you an aim god. Okay, I will just show you a few things, though, that I do think are important to know in case you don't already have this switched off. But blur, screen shake, exposure, full screen effects, put that to 0. Make sure you do that. You don't want your weapon shaking. You don't want like flashing lights and colors and whatnot, just distorting your ability to aim comfortably. Beyond that, it's really a personal journey, okay? There's no, one key sensitivity here. I play on 566. For a lot of people, that's probably a high sense. It's something you want to kind of explore yourself. I've got 1.2 for my 1.4 sensitivity, 1.2, and then 1.3 for everything that's 3.0 and up. I don't know. This is just what feels comfortable for me. There's no science to this, okay? For my trigger dead zones, it's default. I keep it at 0.55. I don't touch it. I got regular triggers. I got no issues there. For my dead zones, my theory on dead zones is I put the center down to 0 because I want the lowest latency possible on both sticks. If I move the stick, I want the fastest possible feedback on screen. So I put center to 0. Input threshold is kind of like a secondary acceleration. The higher this is, the less you have to move your controller stick before you hit max input speed. So if I have it at 12, then basically I'm going to hit max strafe speed faster than if I had it down on like 5 or whatever for my movement. And I like the idea of having faster strafe speed. For aiming, though, you might not want to hit max aim speed with just a little bit of stick movement. So I put my aim threshold down to 5, but I've just kind of set it there and forget it. I haven't touched this for about a year now, and I'm not head casing about it. I'm not worried about it, For my axial dead zone, I raise this until I get rid of drift. Because typically, if I put both these down on 0, my stick is going to drift everywhere. I raise this up until I have either no drift or just a tiny bit of drift. Interestingly, it's not actually a bad idea to have a tiny bit of drift on both sticks on your controller in this game, because aim assist only activates in this game when one or both of your controller sticks are moving. So if you have a tiny bit of drift, then technically speaking, even when you stop moving your sticks, you're still going to have aim assist active if you're in the middle of a gunfight. So it's obviously very negligible, the impact on the game, but if you have a tiny bit of drift, no big deal. And that's it for settings. We're not touching this anymore. If you want to know about my setup, what I'm playing on, I got my monitor, my hardware and whatnot. Amazon affiliate links are in the description. If you use those links and buy anything through those links, I get a little bit of the proceeds. So if you want to help a brother out, I'd appreciate it. There's also my Battle Beaver controller in the description as well. I love these controllers. I've got back paddles on here that help me improve my game. There's more info and my paddle placements and everything. It's all in the description. You can use code Shyway for 10% off. Okay, with all of that said, my first tip to improve your aim in Halo Infinite is to shoot bots. Just shoot a ton of bots. As many bots as you can shoot. Literally, I don't think there's a limit to how many bots you can shoot as long as you're not hurting yourself. You'll always gain something from it. You'll always benefit from it because fundamentally, aiming and shooting is a mechanical process. It's muscle memory. It's hand-eye coordination. The fastest way to build muscle memory in any task in life is to just get the reps in, to just do it a lot. The beauty of shooting bots and modes like training in Halo Infinite is it allows you to get easily accessible reps at a high frequency. You can throw yourself into training on any map, even Forge maps in the games, thanks to Season 3, and just shoot bots endlessly. Go through that mechanical process of aiming and shooting. Now, note that good aim is also down to good map awareness and predictive ability and reactions, but fundamentally, in the moment, at its core, it's good muscle memory and hand-eye coordination. So I recommend that you spend 15 to 30 minutes of every grind loading up training and shooting some bots. You can do it as a warm-up. And I know that training is kind of like a perfect version of the game. It's got 0 latency. The game runs better. Online is a different story. I still think the muscle memory carries over. And more importantly, it gives you access to a feature that you get nowhere else in the game. Reveal enemy location. I recommend you try this out. This is basically wall hacks without wall hacks. This is what I imagine cheater POV looks like. Now, if you're cheating, stop cheating. All right, get a freaking life, bro. But do this instead. This is actually a really cool feature because it lets you feel what it's like to play perfect Halo. Because you can see enemies through walls, you can perfectly prepare yourself for every gunfight. You can place your reticle. You can time yourself perfectly in advance, meaning you get to feel what it feels like to have perfect reactions, to hit every single shot. If you miss with this feature on, then that's probably a miss on your own mechanical ability, right? It's kind of taking away the game sense and the predictive component of aiming and just placing it on your own hand-eye coordination and mechanical ability. So it lets you grind that out. I recommend you try to play perfect Halo. See if you can get kills as quickly as possible while missing as few shots as possible and taking as little damage as possible at the same time while moving as cracked as possible as well. Like, put it all together. grind with intention and mix things up. Shooting bots shouldn't be a mindless process. You can bring things back to basics and just walk around maps and focus on just landing shots. Notice how when you see enemies through walls, it's naturally making you place your reticle. Try to apply those habits in reticle placement even when there isn't an enemy around the wall, and you know, get used to doing that around maps. If you want to work on long-range shots, I find Cliffhanger, for example, is a fun map to focus on long-range interaction, especially with the sniper. It's kind of like a BTB firing range without playing on a full BTB map. The key here is almost like meditation. You're blocking out the world. You're getting a flow state going that brings out the best of your mechanical ability so that you can build your muscle memory and then translate that elsewhere. You can play some music while you do it. I link some of my Spotify playlists that I listen to in the description. And then also you can play custom games as well. Try Bottomless Clip, play some Octagon with friends, play FFA, custom lobbies as well. These are all great ways to just build a core muscle memory. My second tip to improve your aim is to aim with your strafe. Now, note that first off, there is no one set way to aim correctly in Halo, or really any video game for that matter. Like, technically speaking, any combination of controller stick movement that has you quickly and accurately and consistently hitting shots would be considered good aim. That said, there are certain fundamentals and habits that can improve your chances of hitting shots consistently, and the first is to use your left stick or your strafe to aim in gunfights. You can practice this while shooting bots. As an exercise, I want you to try to imagine that your left stick is your aimer. Like, try to shift the focus in your mind so that your left stick is taking on the majority of aim movements, and you're sort of timing your trigger pulls with those left stick movements. To do this, you'll notice that you'll first have to use your right stick to set the reticle on the player at head level, and then try not to move it again. You're going to have to sort of match and follow the strafe of your opponent, which also means you're going to have to laser focus on your opponent and pay close attention to how they're moving so you can follow them. This process is called mirror strafing. You can get away with quite a lot aiming like this on controller thanks to aim assist. On mouse, this is less helpful, but still a useful fundamental. You'll notice while you do this that it sort of negatively impacts your movement as well. Like, your strafe might get slower. You might strafe farther from cover following players. You're moving like a burger, basically, and you don't want that. And that's where you'll want to sort of experiment and add in smaller micro strafes between the larger ones and mix it up. Like, personally, I try to just loosen my left hand and go for a bit of everything. Like big, bold strafes where the left stick is just smacking the outer rim, or like tiny little ones, forward, backwards, circular movement. Get your mind out the gutter. Just, you don't want it to be random, though. Try to have rhythm and purpose when you do this. You're kind of timing the movements around the timing of your shot. No matter how much you move that left stick, the result on your aimer is more subtle, and that's why it's useful to aim with. You got more freedom of movement here without the worry of overcorrecting your aim past the target. But ultimately, the objective here isn't to only aim with left stick, because you need both. Basically, I want you to intimately understand how your left stick affects your aim and the supporting role that it plays in landing good shots. It limits the number of right stick movements you need to make, and it sort of tees you up and gives you time to make more efficient right stick movements when you need to. Also note that if you're aiming with your strafe, you can't jump. And that's one of the reasons why jumping is such a risky move in Halo. Not only can it make you an easier target, but you lose left stick aim control and you got to be more precise with the right stick. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't ever jump, because in some cases, jumping can actually help you aim. Or so, just be wary of the risks. And lastly, another good way to work on left stick aim is to practice peek shots around cover. The jiggle peek doesn't sound threatening, but it is one of the deadliest fundamentals in Halo Infinite, and it really comes down to precise and confident left stick movement, exposing yourself just enough and just long enough to get a shot off while retreating behind cover, or even using it to bait players into making mistakes. Lucid is one of the best at this technique, and we'll talk about it another time. Oh! Tip number 3 to improve your aim in Halo Infinite is to master micro adjustments. Right stick aim control is the most challenging aspect of aiming on controller, and also the aspect of aiming that separates the average aimer from the gods of Halo aim. I am sadly but a mere mortal. I have my moments. I think what makes right stick aim so tricky, though, is the sheer range of movement you get from the smallest motion on your thumb. Like, I feel like mouse aimers don't fully appreciate the fact that if I move this thumb like 2 extra millimeters, that's the difference between me barely moving this right stick and then max speed. If you move your right thumb too much, what happens is you overcorrect your reticle past the target. And then if you move it again to compensate, you might overcorrect again because now your opponent has moved. And the next thing you know, you're just powering up the recharge turbine with your windmill. So the key to good right stick aim is mastering micro adjustments. These tiny little jolts on your right stick that correct your reticle and keep it on target. And also the slower and smoother adjustments when tracking. When my reticle moves like this, my right stick is barely moving off neutral position. I'm not hitting the edges here. These are tiny controlled movements. To get good at this, again, you got to work on it. Like try pushing your reticle around like this and see how much control you have. Try making tiny circles and big circles, clockwise and counterclockwise. How much speed, how much flexibility do you have here? You can also think about how your right thumb sits on the right stick and what areas of your hand or thumb you feel you need to incorporate to get those movements out as quickly, precisely, and effortlessly as possible. And for example, it's going to be kind of tough to show, but when I aim with my right thumb sits over the entire right stick, but the focal point for my aim is actually closer to the tip of my thumb, focused on the upper left edge of the right stick. That's kind of where I get most of my control. Yours might be more centered. Or if you take like Frosty, for example, this is hand cam footage from Halo 5. You can see he's actually not using the upper left side of that right stick. His focal point is on the lower right side of the right stick with the tip of his thumb. That's going to give you a totally different feeling and response as far as precision. There's no one size fits all for this. Again, right? It's a personal journey. So we all have different hands, different sticks, etc. The I guess objective here is to find what feels most comfortable and confident for you. Ultimately, though, form aside, the key here is to make sure that when you're shooting with right stick, every movement is very intentional and decisive. It's typically one straight movement from reticle position to target. No more, no less, no scooping, no rounded movements. It's kind of like tiny cuts, like a samurai. I think to aim with intention, you need to see every shot, which sounds obvious, but bear with me. Physically with your eyeballs, locate the target and lock on with your vision and track him. Recognize the position of your reticle relative to the target and see the shot, see the cut in your mind, and then follow through with one straight, decisive movement. This happens almost instantly. The smaller the distance, the smaller the movement. Larger distance, larger movement. And that's where you get into flick shots. Flicks are fast and powerful cuts with the right stick, and these might have you pegging the stick on the edge. They're also riskier because there's more room for error. But once again, the key here is to make sure that that cut is straight and decisive. And this is why left stick movement is so important, because landing those tiny, precise movements can take some time to set up, and strafing will give you some time to let your eyes and your mind sort of do the calculation if needed. A weapon like the Bandit is all about mastering these tiny and quick micro adjustments, because shots are instant and precise. The BR has this too, but micro adjustments are slower and gentler at times. You're guiding a burst throughout. Essentially, when you practice, I want you to notice the moments when you overcorrect your reticle. Notice when you scoop. Notice all the extra unnecessary movements you make with your right stick, and then ask yourself, was I aiming with intention in this moment? Did I actually see that shot, or did I just sort of throw that shot out blindly? While aiming is ultimately an instinctual process, the less you're thinking about it, the better. I do believe it's important that you maintain your focus throughout the entire gunfight and see every shot, both before, during, and after the shot. Pay attention to where your reticle lands after a shot so you prepare yourself for the next. And be kind to yourself. We're humans. We're never going to shoot perfect. But some of us get pretty close. Those who master tip 4.
Oh!
Tip number 4 is to be confident. Confidence is the most elusive lesson of them all. It is not only the difference between a good and great aimer, but a good and great player. Few of us truly possess this, and most of us never will. I'll just go ahead and say that this is where I'm lacking the most. Confidence doesn't come from shooting bots or hitting skill jumps. It may not even come from ranked play. True confidence comes from taking risks, from joining a team, attending events, challenging others with stakes on the line, playing on the main stage, leaving your comfort zone, embracing failure, and thriving under pressure. And what does all this mean for aiming? Well, it's not about ego challenging one shot. A confident aimer has mastered the 3 Ps: preparation, prediction, and patience. Yes, I just pulled this out of my ass. Just hear me out. I'm going to keep this brief because I realize this video already has way too much information. But essentially, a confident aimer is prepared for every gunfight. And this first means good reticle centering, leading with your reticle in every interaction. Fundamentally, this means learning to find head level with your reticle and maintain it there as often as possible as you navigate maps. But to do this well, especially on controller, is tricky, and I think it involves a process. For example, let's say you're standing on A plat, you're looking nest, and you plan to disengage and look out mid. There's sort of a step-by-step process here that begins in your mind. I know I want to look mid. Your mind then directs your eyes to start moving. Your eyes directs your reticle to follow, and then your reticle directs your movement to then follow afterwards, so you don't just move out and expose yourself. Creating a habit around this step-by-step process ensures that when your reticle moves, it moves with intention, and that your reticle is guiding your movement around the map, and it's the first thing to enter every interaction. You're leading into gunfights with that reticle. Bring this into a high level, and this means knowing all the angles you're exposing yourself to at all times, and then placing your reticle in the highest priority locations based on your awareness of the game in that moment, and also snapping from location to location efficiently. There's a second aspect of preparedness, and this is about knowing the aim corrections you'll need to make even before a fight begins. So, for example, if I want to jump up and shoot C plat here, before I even jump up here, I know that based off this distance, any tiny movement in my right stick will have a huge impact on my reticle. I also know that left stick aim is very impactful here. At the same time, I know there's a high possibility I'm going to get descoped up on this ledge. A good player will consider all of this information in their mind and use it to limit their left and right stick movements even before the fight begins. The second P, prediction, is similar to preparedness but more dynamic and in the moment. This is about knowing your opponent's options in a given situation and using that to make faster and more confident decisions. For example, let's say you're shooting your opponent, he's running to the left, and you know there's a high probability he'll continue running left, and that based off the terrain, he's going to go up. These predictions are guiding your aim and giving you more confidence in your shot. But there is so much depth to good prediction, like knowing when a player is going to jump in a gunfight or knowing your opponent is going to slide challenge you. The best players can confidently make predictions on the fly, and this guides their accuracy. And lastly, a confident aimer has mastered patience. Patience is about letting the game play into your hand. It's about intimately understanding the time and space you have to make a play and pacing yourself accordingly. I see it as sort of the culmination of good preparedness and prediction and the source of what makes you icy. And I'm actually not going to talk about this today. I'm going to save it for another time. If you're up for it, though, in the comments, let me know. What do you think good patience looks like in Halo? Ultimately, though, I think the limits of your confidence are equal to the limits of your goals. So if you want to be an aim god, you got to have some godlike goals. You got to be willing to challenge yourself against better players and not be afraid to fail. My fifth and final tip is to do your homework. Hard to say at this point, there's only been 5 tips, but this is important. I think studying is key to mastering anything in life. So watch your own gameplay and watch the pros. And while you're watching, an exercise I'll leave you with is pretend you are the pro. Pretend that you're actually holding a controller and you're doing everything you see on screen. Like, actually try to feel it and translate it into a controller, like, in your mind. I find this process is easier to do the better you are at the game, and you'll get better over time. But studying like this is done a lot in music. For example, watching people play the piano. It's statistically proven to help you improve faster, so try it. And that's it for this one. Aiming is difficult to explain, but I hope these tips were helpful for you, and I do think that if you apply this stuff, you will genuinely see improvements. Before I go, I've got a quick announcement. If you guys like this content, you find it valuable, you want me to make more videos more frequently, I have finally started a Patreon. I've been making videos for a long time, and I know that Halo is a very difficult franchise. We've been through a lot of ups and downs, but I do still love Halo. I want to still make videos, so this is your way to more directly support me, to inspire me to keep doing this, to do it more often, and for me to personally thank you guys for making any of this possible and grow a stronger community here. I want to build something meaningful and inspire people to get into Halo and improve themselves both inside the game and out. So if you're with me on that, you want to join me on that journey, join me on the way, consider supporting me on Patreon. I know a lot of you guys have been asking about private coaching as well. I plan to offer that next. That's coming up next. So stay tuned. And in the meantime, you can just keep reminding me that you want to see it. If you guys like these videos and you want to see more of this, you can check out the related ones beside me. Make sure to like and subscribe as well if you haven't done that already. And that goes a long way. But until next time, that's it for this one. Good luck on the way.